Good morning students. Today is lecture 6 of module 2. In today's class, we shall start discussing the preparation of various membranes. So, we will start from synthetic membranes. Of course, we will discuss only synthetic membranes, as I told you earlier is that biological membrane is out of our scope. So, we will discuss non-porous and porous membrane preparation, different methods, and today's focus will be mostly on phase inversion membranes. As you know, there are large number of materials are available for preparing membranes. We have discussed all such membrane materials such as polymers and inorganic materials. They are different properties. There are advantages and disadvantages of using these materials for membrane preparation. Similarly, there are so many different varieties or types of membrane preparation techniques are available. Which can be used for preparing a particular membrane for a specific task. Now, based on the structure and separation principle, we can divide the membranes into three classes. First is porous membrane, which is of course our microfiltration, ultrafiltration, all these membranes. Then we have non-porous membranes, which are also called dense membranes. So, these are used for gas separation, pervaporation, dialysis and all. And then we have carrier mediated membranes or carrier membranes, which basically works on facilitated transport. In a nutshell, we have discussed this, but in our subsequent lecture, we will devote one full class to discuss facilitated transport. So, RO membrane actually it lies in between our porous and non-porous membranes. So, for porous membranes, the dimension of the pore mainly determines the separation. The type of membrane material being crucial importance for chemical, thermal and mechanical stability, but the type of material is not at all contributing to the flux and overall rejection. So, membranes of this class actually induce separation by discriminating between particle size. So, that is why these are called size based separation basically, and such membranes are microfiltration and ultrafiltration. So, we can obtain very high selectivities when the solute size or particle size is very large relative to the pore size. So, all of them will be subsequently written. You can see how a microporous membrane looks like. So, this is a polypropylene membrane. This is same image actually, FECM image. Membranes of non-porous nature will separate the molecules approximately the same size from each other. That is the beauty of non-porous or dense membranes. So, actually separation is taking place by virtue of the differences either in diffusivity or solubility. So, that precisely means the polymeric material of the membrane is determining the extent of selectivity and permeability. So, these membranes are mostly used in pervaporation application as well as gas separation and dialysis membranes. You can see a FECM image of a non-porous or dense membrane here. The next class of membrane is carrier membranes. So, here this is a specific class of membranes in which the transport is through facilitated mechanism. So, here the membrane transport under this class is not determined by any way of the membrane. So, the membrane material is not playing any role. Who is helping in transport is basically the carrier molecule which is present inside the pores of the membrane. So, we can have two different mechanisms here. Either we can have a carrier that is fixed to the membrane matrix, or we can have a carrier which is mobile when it is dissolved inside the liquid and that liquid is filled in the pores of the membranes. And the membrane itself, the solid membrane itself is providing a mechanical support for such purposes. The perm selectivity towards a component depends mainly on the specificity of the carrier molecule. So, what is the carrier molecule, what is its nature, that means its physical and chemical nature. So, all these things will determine the overall selectivity. So, through the use of specially tailored carriers, extremely high selectivities can be obtained. The meaning of this sentence is basically for a particular target separation. So, I can choose a carrier molecule in such a way that I can get very high selectivities. See in this particular sketch, these are the carriers, okay, how they are helping and they are binding to this solute. This is another solute which I want to transport. So, this is a carrier and solute intermediate complex. When it is reaching the membrane surface, the permeate side, then it is dissociating itself and the carrier is again back inside the membrane for fresh binding of the solute. Okay. So, the component to be removed can be gaseous, liquid, ionic or non-ionic. To some extent, the functionality of this kind of membrane approaches that of a cell membrane. So, basically most of the biological membranes they work in such mechanism. So, let us now discuss preparation of the membranes. So, all kinds of different synthetic materials can be used for preparing membranes. Actually, the aim is to modify the membrane by means of an appropriate technique to obtain the membrane structure with a particular morphology which will suit a particular separation. So, the material actually limits the preparation technique involved. So, what is the meaning of this? Meaning is that I cannot use any material for any preparation technique. Let us say there is a particular technique called sintering. I am just giving an example. So, I cannot use any type of material for sintering, though most of the polymers and ceramics are used, but there are restrictions. Similarly, there are restrictions for track etching, there are restrictions for interfacial polymerization. Okay. So, number of different techniques are available to prepare synthetic membranes. Some of these techniques can be used to prepare polymeric as well as inorganic membranes. So, that means some of the techniques can be used for both polymeric and inorganic materials. However, there are few techniques which are exclusively meant for either polymeric or either ceramic membranes or inorganic membranes. So, we will see one by one today the different techniques to prepare membrane. Some of them are sintering, stretching, track etching, phase inversion, sol gel, vapor deposition and solution coating. So, today we will discuss few of them. So, first we will discuss the symmetric non-porous membranes, okay, then followed by symmetric porous membranes, and then we will discuss the asymmetric porous membranes, which are basically the composite membranes. Okay. So, let us discuss the symmetric non-porous membranes or dense membranes. So, dense non-porous symmetric membranes are rarely used in membrane separation processes, because the flux through these relatively thick, they are very thick membranes, okay, is too low for practical separation purposes. In one class, if you remember, as I told you earlier, that the membrane thickness should be as less as possible, otherwise the membrane material and its thickness is providing a additional resistance to the separation. So, if it will be very thin, then the resistance will be less. If it is very thick, then the resistance will be more. So, ultimately the separation will be low. So, this is very important, and that is why these non-porous membranes, which are usually thick than other porous membranes, okay, they are not giving high flux and the selectivity is also less. So, however, they are widely used in laboratory work to characterize membrane properties. So, there are two simple way we are discussing, there are many other ways also. The first one is called solution casting and the second one is called melt extrusion. So, you can see actually how thick actually a dense membrane or this one non-porous membrane is. So, solution casting is one of the most easiest way, it is very crude way to do actually, and we can do it in a lab scale. So, what is being done in this, say a film of a appropriate polymer solution is spread across a flat plate with a casting knife. Please look at the figure now. So, this is actually the casting knife, okay. So, and this is the film, right. So, the casting knife consists of a steel blade resting on two runners. Okay. So, this is one runner, this is another runner. So, basically it moves, we can move it in this direction, I can again further move it in this direction. So, the knife consists of a steel blade resting on two runners arranged to form a precise gap between the blade and the plate onto which the film is cast. And what is the role of knife? So, I can adjust the knife height in such a way to obtain a desired thickness of the membrane. And after casting, the solution is left to stand for some time. Okay. The reason is that let the solvent evaporates. Okay. When the solvent evaporates, then it will a very thin uniform polymer film will be precipitated and it will be collected. Now, once all the solvent evaporated, the film becomes dry, we can take it up. Now, it may happen many times, the film after the solvent evaporation is become very sticky to the surface of the plate. So, that time we have to use a non-swelling swelling non-solvent, usually water or alcohol, that will usually lose the film, so that I can take the film without distorting its structure further. So, the next one is actually melt extruded film. So, this is exclusively used for certain polymers which do not dissolve in some suitable casting solvents like nylon, Okay. Such polymers are compressed between two heated plates. There are two heated plates under which these polymers are actually compressed, and so typically a pressure, very high pressure is applied, usually 2000 to 5000 psi pressure is applied for very small residence time, usually 1 to 5 minute, okay, at a plate temperature just above the melting point of the polymer. Now, many times what happens, if the polymers which I want to use for this non-porous membrane preparation is available in the forms of beads, small beads, then we need to decrease the particle size. So, we can go for some pressing to decrease the particle size or grinding, okay, then we can put it under the blades. So, the optimum pressing temperature is the lowest temperature that yields a membrane of completely fused polymer of the desired thickness. So, basically we want temperature pressure in such a way that the entire polymer material which is supplied between these two plates has been melted and resulted in a desired thickness. So, you can see this is actually a melt extrusion system in which there are two drums, one is here and one is are rotating, okay, in this direction, and the casting solution is poured here. You can see a small knife type of arrangement here, okay, which is just like the blade which we discussed the earlier slide, okay, that determines the thickness of the membrane, okay, and air is being pushed from the bottom here, okay, and the air will actually help in evaporating the solvent. So, the next is symmetric porous membrane. So, we will discuss 4 different types of preparation techniques here. The first one is sintering, then stretching, then track etching, and then template etching. So, these are the preparation techniques for symmetric porous membranes. So, sintering is a very old age metallurgical process, actually it is. So, it is a quite simple technique allowing porous membranes to be obtained from organic as well as inorganic materials. So, the beauty of this particular technique is that I can use both polymers as well as inorganic materials. The method involves compressing a powder consisting of particles of a given size and sintering it at elevated temperature. Sintering means you are putting them under very high elevated temperature in an atmosphere of a very high elevated temperature, and the required temperature depends on the materials to be used. What temperature you are going to set, actually that depends upon the material which you are using, okay, there is no thumb rule for this. So, during the sintering, the interfaces between the contacting particles disappear, the interfaces, not phases, okay. So, please see this figure. You can see I have shown you 4 different grains, okay, of this is the first, this is the initial stage. Here the grains are small and the pore, okay, whatever it is available here, the interspace between these pores, these 4 grains, okay, that is actually big, and in the intermediate stage what is happening? So, the grain size increases. So, the grains, these grains, they are fusing together, right. When they fuse together, the grain size increases, however, the pore size decreases. You can see the pore size has become small, okay. Then in the final stage, the grain size remains, we get a big grain, okay, and we get a small pore, very small pore. This is how actually the pores are developed using a sintering process. So, a wide range of different materials can be used, such as powders of polymers, okay, metals, ceramics, and even glass, silicates. So, this is this scheme actually is interesting and will be more clear. So, we will discuss this. See, let us see the pore size of the resulting material, actually a membrane is determined by the particle size and particle size distribution of the powder. So, please remember this, this is very important. So, the pore size is determined by the particle size and particle size distribution of the powder. Powder means the material, your material which from which you are going to make your membrane. So, the narrower the particle size distribution, the narrower the pore size distribution in the resulting membrane. So, if we get a very narrow particle size distribution, something like this, okay, then we will also get a very narrow membrane, pore size distribution. So, this technique allows a pore size of about 0.1 micron to 10 micron, okay, and all the materials mentioned here are basic materials for sintering process, have the common feature of outstanding chemical, thermal and mechanical stability, particularly the inorganic materials. Since we are talking about a very high elevated temperature process, so the materials that supposed to be used for this process should have very good thermal and mechanical stability. So, only one problem is this, we can only make microfiltration membranes out of this. It is very difficult to make ultrafiltration or nanofiltration range. So, it is not possible basically. So, the porosity of the porous polymeric membrane is generally low, normally in the range of 10 to 20% or sometimes a little higher also. Now, we have little advanced techniques. So, you can see how nicely this particular scheme make you understand of the sintering process. Usually initially the powder will be loose, then they becomes they come close together, okay. And then intermediate stage you can see small the interfaces is growing, okay, sorry, disappearing, and then when most of the grains are fused together, okay, we get the pores of different sizes. So, the next one is stretching. So, in this method an extruded film or foil made from a partial crystalline polymeric material, usually polytetrafluoroethylene PTFE, polypropylene PP or polyethylene, is stretched perpendicular to the direction of the extrusion, so that the crystalline regions are located parallel to the extrusion direction. Basically, there is a film which is casted, okay, and you are supposed to stretch that. So, stretching can be done by various method, okay. So, you are applying a mechanical stress basically, right. What is the intention? To create cracks or ruptures, okay. So, when you create a crack and ruptures by giving mechanical stress, then later on you have to go for a process in which you are going to wash these membranes, so that whatever these loose or adhered particles are attached to the surface of the pores will get basically washed away and the pores becomes clean. So, only semi-crystalline polymeric materials can be used for this technique. The porosity of these membranes is much higher than that of the that obtained by sintering, and almost we can get up to 90% porous. So, you can have a longitudinal stretching inside a oven, or you can have a transverse stretching and setting, and this particular same image is for a stretched polytetrafluoroethylene membrane. So, the next method is track etching. These are old techniques, but are also used nowadays for making commercial membranes. So, the simplest pore geometry in a membrane is an assembly of parallel cylindrically shaped pores of uniform dimensions. We get very nice pore structure in this method, okay. Such structures can be obtained by track etching. In this method, a film which is already casted actually. When I am talking about that a film, okay, that means a polymer which is already dissolved in a solvent, okay, and then it is casted in a film. So, now that film is subjected to high energy particle radiation, okay, applied perpendicular to the film. So, what this radiation is doing? The radiation is damaging the polymer matrix basically by creating tracks or cracks, whatever you can call them. So, in the earlier slide what we discussed about stretching, that the stretching was done by mechanically. Here actually we are not doing stretching, we are creating the same tracks or cracks by radiation. So, the film is then immersed in a acid or alkaline bath, and the polymeric material is eased away along these tracks to form a uniform cylindrical pores with narrow pore size distribution. So, you get very nice uniform cylindrical pores with a narrow pore size distribution. So, usually pore sizes of 0.2 micron to 10 micron are obtained. However, the surface porosity is low, about 10%. The choice of polymeric material depends mainly on the thickness of the film and on the energy of the particles that is being applied. Okay, how much radiation you are applying actually. So, the maximum penetration thickness of the particles with this energy is about usually 20 micron, right. When the energy of the particles is increased, the film thickness can also be increased, and even inorganic materials can be used. Usually polymeric materials are used, however, in recent some advancements have taken place where they have used some inorganic materials also, as for example mica. Okay. So, the porosity is mainly determined by the radiation time, okay, whereas pore diameter is determined by the etching time. Okay. So, etching is done to remove whatever the loose or adhered particles that is attached to the crack, okay, then the pores will be cleaned. Next method is template leaching. So, this is another technique for preparing porous membrane by the name is template leaching. So, what is being done here is actually we are leaching out one of the component from a film. Okay. So, in this process a homogeneous melt actually is prepared from the mixture of polymeric membrane matrix material and a leachable component. So, the leachable component is already mixed while we are making a film, right. So, to finally disperse the leachable component in the polymeric matrix, the mixture is often homogenized, extruded, pelletized several times before the final extrusion as a thin film. You can see the schematic actually. So, one example is porous glass membranes. So, you can prepare porous glass membranes by this technique. So, we prepare a homogeneous melt at a temperature of usually 1000 to 1500 degrees centigrade, okay, of 3 component system. So, this is your sodium oxide, barium trioxide and silicon dioxide. Okay, this is a 3 component system. It is cooled and as a consequence the system separates into 2 phases. So, what are these 2 phases? So, the one phase containing mainly silicon dioxide, okay. So, that phase is not soluble, right, and other phase is soluble. Now, this second phase is leached out by an acid or base and a wide range of pore diameters can be obtained with a minimum size of about 0.005 meter. So, basically what is happening when the leaching is happening? So, this leaching is creating the pores. But anyway, again once this leaching process is over, the film will be subjected to certain washing techniques, or you can again put them to some bath in which using some solvent or non-solvent you can wash out the loosely adhered particles which are there inside the pores. Basically, you are cleaning the pores. So, the next one is asymmetric porous membranes. Under this we will discuss various processes such as coating, phase inversion separation, interfacial polymerization and solution coated composite membranes. So, today we will restrict our discussion to coating and phase inversion. Next methods we will discuss in our next lecture. So, usually we can prepare dense polymeric membranes in which transport takes place by diffusion, generally show low fluxes. Okay. To increase the flux through these membranes, the effective membrane thickness must be reduced as much as possible. So, that is what I was telling few minutes before also, right. This may be achieved by preparing composite membranes. So, composite membranes or asymmetric membranes, right. So, such composite membranes consist of 2 different materials with a very selective membrane material being deposited as a thin layer, okay, on a porous layer. So, this is the thin layer, selective layer, okay, which is actually doing the separation. Then we can have another sealing layer here, okay, having very low pore size distribution, then another layer here, okay, which is highly microporous. So, that is providing here support. So, the actual selectivity is determined the thin top layer, whereas the porous sublayer is serving the support. Support means it is providing mechanical support. So, several coating procedures can be used such as deep coating, plasma polymerization, interfacial polymerization and in situ polymerization to achieve these membranes. Another type of coating is also possible where the coating layer plugs the pores in the sublayer. So, in this case actually properties of the sublayer rather than those of the coating layer mainly determine the overall properties. So, this is a different technique. With sintering, stretching, leaching out and track etching techniques only porous membranes can be obtained, whatever we have discussed today. So, these membranes can also be used as a sublayer for composite membranes, so that their application can be extended to other areas. So, through the use of phase inversion technique, it is possible to obtain open as well as dense structures. So, phase inversion is one of the most important process, okay. That technique can be used to obtain both open as well as open means porous as well as dense membranes. Coating techniques are normally used to prepare thin but dense structures possessing a high selectivity and relatively high flux. So, the basic support material for all composite membrane is often an asymmetric membrane obtained by phase inversion. So, today we will discuss about phase inversion in detail. So, phase inversion is widely used for polymeric membrane preparations. So, it is the easiest, most secure and time tested method to prepare various porous polymeric membranes for different applications. So, the method works by controlling the separation state of the 2 phases, right. It is a process in which the polymer actually is transferred from a liquid state to a solid state, okay, under a controlled manner or atmosphere. So, the one with the concentrated phase after the phase separation is actually solidified immediately and results in the formation of the membrane. And by controlling the initial stages of the phase transition, the membrane morphology can be controlled. That is how we can either have a porous membrane or we can also prepare non-porous membrane using this particular technique. So, this is a very versatile technique allowing all kinds of morphologies to be obtained, and most commercial membranes are obtained by phase inversion techniques. So, let us say what are the different types of phase inversion. In many books you will see they are writing phase separation, this is the same basically. Okay. So, we shall have precipitation by solvent evaporation, we can have precipitation from the vapor phase, we can have precipitation by controlled evaporation, then we can have thermal precipitation, then we have immersion precipitation. So, in all phase inversion or phase separation process there are two phases, one phase is precipitating and that is forming the solid phase, okay, and later on the membrane. So, in all this phase separation process a liquid polymer solution is precipitated, okay, to one solid phase which is polymer rich phase, another is liquid phase, okay, which is polymer pore phase. So, this polymer rich phase will form the matrix of the membrane, whereas the polymer pore phase will form the pores. So, let us see one by one these techniques. So, precipitation by solvent evaporation. Okay. So, how we are precipitating? By evaporating the solvent. So, this is the simplest the technique as the name indicates. Okay. Polymer is dissolved in a solvent and the polymer solution is casted on a suitable support. Okay. So, I can use a stainless plate or a glass plate, okay, to cast the polymer solution. So, porous support like glass or stainless steel, okay, or non-porous support also can be used. The solvent is used to evaporate in an inert atmosphere, usually nitrogen is used. So, water vapor is excluded, allowing a dense homogeneous membrane to be obtained. So, it is also possible to deposit the polymer solution on a substrate by deep coating or by spraying. So, we will discuss deep coating later on. So, the next one is precipitation by vapor phase. So, this method was used long back in 1980 by Zsigmondy, who has prepared actually polymeric membrane using this particular technique. So, a cast film consisting of a polymer and solvent is placed in a vapor atmosphere, or we can call it as a humid atmosphere. Many books has written that humid atmosphere, where the vapor phase consists of a non-solvent saturated with the same solvent. Okay. So, the high solvent concentration in the vapor phase prevents the evaporation of the solvent from the cast film. Okay. The membrane formation occurs because of the penetration of the non-solvent into the cast film. So, basically the non-solvent which is present in your vapor phase will try to penetrate to the matrix of the film, okay, thereby creating the pores. So, with immersion precipitation an evaporation step in air is sometimes introduced, and if the solvent is miscible with water, precipitation from the vapor will start at this phase. So, you can see this is a stainless steel conveyor belt arrangement in this particular schematic diagram. Okay. So, you can have a doctor blade, again the doctor blade is the job is to increase or decrease the thickness of the particular membrane. Okay. Here your casting solution can be poured here, then it is rotating on the stainless steel conveyor belt arrangement, and this film is gradually passing through various chambers. So, these environmental chambers, some will have this vapor phase containing the non-solvent, some will have the air, and in some chambers drying will also take place just before we will take up the final membrane. So, the next one is precipitation by controlled evaporation. So, precipitation by controlled evaporation was already used in the early years of this century. So, the polymer is dissolved in a mixture of a solvent and a non-solvent. When I am preparing the cast solution, that means the polymer is dissolved in a solvent which will dissolve the polymer, and here I am adding a non-solvent at this stage. Now, the composition of this particular solution in which there is a solvent and a non-solvent will shift during evaporation to a higher non-solvent and polymer content, since the solvent is more volatile than the non-solvent. So, you are understanding. So, that means when I am making mixture of a polymer then its solvent as a non-solvent, then what will happen when I am casting it, then since the solvent is readily evaporated, it will evaporate. So, the composition will be more towards the non-solvent and the polymer content. So, that will form the matrix of the membrane. So, skin membrane is formed due to the polymer precipitation. So, the next technique is called thermal precipitation. So, this method is frequently used to prepare microfiltration membranes. So, a solution of a polymer in a solvent, either it is a mixed or a single, okay, is cooled to enable phase separation to occur. So, this is basically is a cooling technique. Okay. So, evaporation of the solvent often allows the formation of the skin membranes. So, in every process the solvent is getting evaporated and finally precipitation of the polymer membrane is happening, or the matrix is happening. Okay. And because the cooling is uniform throughout the cast film, usually it is uniform. Okay. The resulting membranes are relatively asymmetric microporous structures with pores that can be controlled within 0.1 to 10 micron. Very smaller pore size can be obtained. So, you can see this particular diagram in which the polymer solution is actually poured on a water cooled chill roll. This is a water cooled chill roll, okay, which is rotating in this direction. Okay. And once the chill roll is cooling the casting solution, then it is resulting into a polymeric film. The film is passed through a extraction chamber where it is passing. So, these are actually this whatever round shape things you are seeing, these are this conveyor belt type arrangements, okay, and the film is passing through this chamber, okay. Then it goes through drying, okay, and the extraction solvent can also be recycled back. So, the next technique, which is one of the most important technique or most important this one commercially adapted technique for membrane preparation in most of the industries, that is actually immersion precipitation. So, most of the commercial membranes are manufactured using immersion precipitation. So, here the casting solution, that means the polymer plus the solvent which dissolve it, okay, is cast on a suitable support and left to stand for 10 to 100 seconds, very small residence time. So, as to allow some of the solvent to evaporate. The idea is not to evaporate all the solvent, but to just allow some of the solvents to evaporate. Then the film is immersed in a coagulation bath, okay, containing a non-solvent, right. So, the non-solvent can be usually water, we can have some other solvent also, non-solvent also. The precipitation occurs because of the exchange of the solvent and non-solvent, right. So, you can look this figure what is happening. So, this is the polymer solution, right. Okay, on the support there is a support on that. So, this I am putting it in a precipitation bath containing a non-solvent. Now, what is happening? You can see when the process is on, the non-solvent is trying to diffuse inside the polymeric membrane, whereas the solvent is diffusing out of the polymeric film. Now, this structure actually creating pores. Okay. The membrane is usually post treated by annealing in a bath of hot water. Okay. Annealing is a metallurgical process, right. So, mostly asymmetric membranes are obtained by this membrane. You can understand that we are talking about asymmetric membrane here, there are two layers here. Okay. So, the choice of polymer and choice of casting solution solvent are very important for this particular process. So, the ideal polymer should be an amorphous, but not brittle thermoplastic, okay, with a glass transition temperature more than usually 50 degrees centigrade. And we can have varieties of casting solution solvent. Usually the best casting solution solvents are dimethyl formamide, N-methyl pyrrolidone and dimethyl acetamide. Apart from this, there are several variables that are adjusted to control membrane properties. Okay, some of them are composition of the polymer solution. So, are you going to have some other additives, okay, which can help in forming pore of a particular size, or then solvent evaporation temperature and evaporation time and temperature of the non-solvent media. So, all these parameters, these are process parameters, can be optimized to get a particular desired pore size and pore size distribution. You can see how it actually looks like. This is the top skin, okay. This is the enlarged image of the top screen, okay, and this is the top screen cross section, right, and these are actually the pores. So, most of the membranes in use today are phase inversion membranes. Okay. They are obtained by this immersion precipitation techniques. So, phase inversion membranes can be prepared from a wide variety of polymers. The only requirement is that the polymer must be solution in a solvent or a solvent mixture. So, that is the only criteria for using this phase separation or phase inversion technique. Basically, the membranes can be prepared in two configurations, either we can have a flat sheet membrane, okay, or we have tubular membranes. So, you see how the flat sheet membrane, these are commercial membranes available, okay, and these are hollow fibers, these are ceramic membranes, okay, these are tubular membranes. So, let us see how the flat sheet membrane can be prepared. Okay, the flat membranes are used in a plate and frame and spiral wound system. This we have discussed when we have discussed the membrane modules. Okay, the polymer is dissolved in a suitable solvent or a solvent mixture. The viscosity of the solution depends on the molecular weight of the polymer, its concentration, the kind of solvent and the various additives. So, polymer solution is actually poured on the conveyor belt arrangement, again mostly the same type of arrangements here. There are some conveyors usually having this stainless steel belts, right. Then we can have a casting knife here, the height of the knife is determining the thickness of the membrane, then it goes through a coagulation bath. Okay. And then after that also, after it is cleaned and comes out of the coagulation bath, okay, we can go for we will have to go for different post treatments, okay, to before we get a dry membrane. So, the polymer solution is cast directly on a supporting layer, and a casting knife will actually help in thickness of the deciding the thickness of the membrane. The casting thickness can roughly vary from 50 to 500 micron. So, the cast film is then immersed in a non-solvent bath. Whatever the film that is casted using a polymer and a solvent and the film is formed, now that will goes to a non-solvent bath, okay, where the exchange occurs between the solvent and a non-solvent, and usually the polymer precipitates. So, the non-solvent will try to diffuse through the membrane matrix or the polymer, okay, or the film, and the solvent which is already present in the film will try to evaporate. So, this is how actually it happens. So, one is diffusing out, another is diffusing in. So, water is often used as a non-solvent, but organic solvents like methanol, okay, can also be used for different polymers. Now, non-solvent cannot be chosen, since the solvent non-solvent pair is very important parameter in obtaining the desired structure. So, the membranes obtained after precipitation can be used directly, or a post treatment, that is heat treatment, can be applied. So, depends actually what is your intention and what is your intended application. So, depending on that, you will decide basically whether you will use directly after the membrane is prepared, or it comes from the bath, or where you are going to take it for some thermal treatment such as drying or some other processes like annealing and cooling. Other preparation parameters that helps in preparing a flat sheet membrane are polymer concentration, evaporation time, humidity, temperature and composition of the casting solution. Now, all these parameters are mainly determining the ultimate membrane performance, which is flux and selectivity, and hence its application, right. So, what is the flux and what is the selectivity of the prepared membrane? Ultimately, that will decide where this particular membrane will be used, what type of application. So, free flat membranes can be obtained by casting the polymer solution upon a metal or a polymer belt. So, after the coagulation and washing, the free flat sheet can be collected. So, if I do not want any other treatment processes, then I can usually collect it after coagulation and washing and use it. So, flat membranes are very useful for testing on a laboratory scale, as they are relatively simple to prepare. For very small membrane surface areas, so it is less than 1000 centimeter square, the membranes are cast mostly by hand or semi automatically on a glass plate. So, glass plate, metals and polymers such as polytetrafluoroethylene, polymethyl methylcrylate PMMA are some of the other materials which are where the casting solution is casted. Let us see how the tubular membranes are prepared. So, the tubular form is another an alternate geometries and very good in terms of commercial application. So, we can have either a hollow fiber membranes where the diameter is less than 0.5 millimeter, or we can have capillary membrane where the diameter is usually 0.5 to 5 mm, or we can have tubular membranes. So, diameter is usually greater than 5 mm. So, the dimensions of the tubular membranes are so large that they have to be supported. So, the hollow fibers and capillaries are self supporting. Okay. This also we have discussed during our modular configuration discussions. So, although both flat membranes and hollow fiber membranes can exhibit similar performance, the procedures for their preparations are not the same. This we have learned today. Okay. The fiber dimensions are very important, since hollow fibers are self supporting. Since hollow fibers are self supporting, so the mechanical strength is actually less for them, and furthermore demixing takes place from the bore side or lumen, okay, and from the cell side or outside, whereas in preparation of the flat membrane demixing occurs from only one side. So, try to understand what is the meaning of this. So, when I am preparing a flat sheet membrane, so the demixing, that means the diffusion of solvent out and non-solvent in, actually is happening from one side of the membrane only, whereas when we are talking about a tubular membranes or hollow fiber membranes, okay, so there is a cell side and there is a tube side. Okay, so there is something called inside of the tube tube and something is the outside of the tube. So, from both sides actually the demixing is occurring. So, that is actually it is complicated. So, we can prepare hollow fibers and capillaries by 3 different methods. One is called wet spinning, or it is also called dry wet spinning method or melt, then melt spinning and dry spinning. So, we will discuss this first one. This is very important preparation technique. So, a viscous polymer solution containing a polymer, a solvent and sometimes additives are pumped through a spinneret. Okay. So, this is actually the spinneret. You can see this is the enlarged version of this, and the polymer solution is being filtered before it enters the spinneret. The viscosity of the polymeric solution must be high, usually it should be greater than 100 poise in general. Okay. The bore injection fluid is pumped through the inner tube of the spinneret. So, this is the bore actually through which bore fluid is injected and the polymer solution is passed outside the bore. Okay. There is a air gap. The air gap plays a lot of role in deciding what is the type and quality and thickness of the membrane, and then it goes through a coagulation bath and flushing bath, then before it goes to final drying. So, after a short residence time in the air or all controlled atmosphere, the fiber is immersed in a non-solvent bath where coagulation occurs. So, the term actually dry originates from the above steps. Okay, we are calling it a dry wet spinning method. Na? So, the fiber is then collected upon a gaudet. The main spinning parameters are extrusion rate of the polymer solution, at what rate the extrusion is happening through the spinneret, the bore fluid rate, the tearing rate, the residence time in the air gap, okay, and the dimensions of the spinneret. So, these are the parameters which all can be optimized to produce a particular tailor-made membrane. So, these parameters interfere with the membrane forming parameters such as the composition of the polymer solution, the composition of the coagulation bath and its temperature. You can see the scanning electron microscope images of a polypropylene hollow fiber membrane here. Okay. So, this is a cut actually and this is the cross section. Okay. This is the inside of the tube and this is the membrane thickness. Student, this is the last slide. I will try to explain this how a tubular membrane is prepared here. See the first one. Here we have a porous tube. This is the porous tube actually. Okay, right. And there is a casting bob. This one. Okay, this one, the casting bob. So, the casting bob is actually porous. So, what we are doing or what is being done is actually there is a reservoir here which is having the polymer solution. So, this polymer solution is pushed through the casting bob. So, since the casting bob is porous in nature, so the pore will allow the polymeric solution to pass through the casting bob, and the casting bob is can be moved up and down. Right. So, when it is moved up and down, so the polymer solution that is coming out from the casting bob will get attached to the porous tube and film will form like this. Okay. Once that is done, the casting bob is taken out, then we have to take this porous tube and put it inside a coagulation bath. So, during this coagulation bath, what is happening? Again this solvent and non-solvent diffusion will takes place, okay. And after certain time, you will allow certain residence time in the coagulation bath. What will happen that the membrane which is formed inside this porous tube will become loose, then we can take it out for further processing. We can go for some other processing like annealing or some heat treatment if it is required. It depends upon what is the intended application. So, students, this is how tubular membranes prepared. So, in today's class we have discussed basically how non-porous or dense membranes are prepared, then how symmetric and asymmetric microporous or porous membranes are prepared, as well as we have seen how flat sheet and tubular membranes are prepared. So, these are some of the references that I am using. Okay. And then in the next class we will discuss about the preparation of the composite membranes. So, and by various techniques which is interfacial polymerization, deep coating, plasma polymerization. Okay. Interfacial polymerization is one of the most important breakthrough in preparing these integrally skin membranes. Okay. So, please keep reading, and if you have any doubt you can always drop a mail to me at kmohanty@iitg.ac.in. So, thank you very much.